The docking clamps barely held as Persistence settled into Bay 17 of Meridian 7 Station. Around it, vessels from across the galaxy gleamed like polished gems, their hulls smooth and their engines humming with the quiet confidence of modern engineering. The human ship looked like something dragged from a scrapyard by comparison. Ambassador Rachel Grant felt the vibration through her boots as the boarding ramp extended. She'd known this moment would be difficult, but the laughter echoing through the station's communication channels made her jaw tighten. Chief Engineer David Ross stood beside her, his weathered hands resting on a control panel that had been repaired so many times the original casing was long gone. "They're not even trying to hide it," David muttered, listening to the open channel chatter. "The Valorians are taking bets on whether we'll make it back to Sol without falling apart." Rachel straightened her uniform. "Let them laugh. We didn't come here to impress them with paint jobs." The airlock opened to reveal Prefect Wome, the station's four-armed administrator, his crystalline eyes scanning Persistence's interior with barely concealed disgust. Behind him stood Commander Talia Oren of the Valorian fleet, her scaled face arranged in what Rachel had learned to recognize as their version of a smirk. "Ambassador Grant," Wome's translator rendered his clicking speech into flat, bureaucratic tones, "I must inform you that several delegations have expressed concerns about the safety of your vessel. Station regulations require all docked ships to meet minimum technological standards." "Our ship meets every safety requirement you transmitted," Rachel replied evenly. "I have the certification documents ready for review." Talia stepped forward, her armor glinting under the station's lights. "Perhaps the ambassador misunderstands. We're not questioning whether your ship can dock. We're questioning whether it should. The Valorian Empire has been building starships for 12,000 years. We recognize structural fatigue when we see it." David couldn't stay quiet. "Structural fatigue implies weakness. This ship has integrity your builders never considered necessary." "Integrity?" Talia laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Your hull is covered in patches, your thrusters use chemical propulsion as backup, you have manual controls for systems that should be fully automated. This vessel belongs in a museum, not a diplomatic mission." More aliens had gathered at the airlock entrance. Harmonizer Click 17 from the Crystalline Consortium pushed forward, compound eyes examining every visible surface. "The human ship operates on principles we abandoned 6 millennia ago. There is no profit in maintaining outdated technology. Surely your species understands the value of upgrading." Rachel had prepared for this. She'd known humanity's first contact with galactic civilization would involve judgment. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel by studying alien probe wreckage, reverse engineering their way into a galaxy that had been exploring for eons. But she hadn't expected the mockery to start before she'd even left her ship. "The negotiations are scheduled to begin in 2 hours," she said, keeping her voice level. "Persistence will remain docked for the duration. If any delegate wishes to tour the ship and understand our engineering philosophy, we welcome such visits." Wome's translator made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Very well. However, I am required to post safety warnings about your vessel. Other ships may choose to dock elsewhere to avoid potential hazards from your antiquated systems." The crowd dispersed, though Rachel caught several aliens capturing images of Persistence, their expressions ranging from amusement to pity. Talia lingered, her eyes studying the visible repair work on the corridor walls. "Your species is new to galactic society," the Valorian commander said quietly. "Perhaps you don't understand how appearances matter. The consortium will never trade with those they perceive as primitive. The Hive Collective ignores species that cannot demonstrate technological parity. You've damaged your position before negotiations even begin." "We understand more than you think," Rachel replied. "This ship has carried us farther than you know." Talia's expression shifted to something that might have been genuine concern. "Then why arrive in a vessel that undermines your credibility? Surely Earth has newer ships." "We do," David interjected. "We chose Persistence specifically." The Valorian commander studied them both, clearly trying to understand. Then she shook her head and left, her armored boots echoing down the station's pristine corridors. Inside Persistence, the human crew gathered in the common area. Lieutenant Amy Foster, the navigation officer, looked defeated. "Sir, they're calling us the patch people on the station feeds. This is a disaster." Rachel understood their frustration. The crew had volunteered for this mission knowing it would be challenging, but public humiliation hadn't been part of the briefing. "We proceed as planned. The trade agreements don't depend on whether they like our ship." "With respect, Ambassador," Lieutenant Chris Ward, the communications officer, spoke up. "They won't take us seriously if they think we're technologically inferior." The consortium delegation already canceled their introductory meeting. David moved to a wall panel, running his hand over metal that bore the marks of countless repairs. "This ship has survived things that would have destroyed any of those gleaming vessels out there. They judge us by appearance. We know what persistence really is." "And what is that exactly?" Amy asked. "Because right now it looks like we brought a relic to a technology showcase." Rachel was about to respond when the station's alarm system activated. Red lights pulsed through the corridors, and Wome's voice echoed from every speaker. "All vessels initiate immediate emergency protocols. Solar flare detected at catastrophic intensity. Estimated impact in 40 minutes. Modern shielding systems may experience cascading failures. All ships prepare for evacuation procedures." Through the viewports, Rachel saw the nearby star's surface roiling with unprecedented activity. Radiation sensors across the station began screaming warnings. In the docking bay, sleek alien vessels lit up with emergency indicators as their crews scrambled to protect delicate systems. David was already moving, his fingers dancing across control panels. "Amy, get to navigation and bring primary shields to full power. Chris, switch all systems to manual override. Rachel, you might want to inform the station that we're not evacuating." "Our shields can handle this?" Rachel asked, though she already suspected the answer. "These shields were designed for cosmic radiation exposure over centuries," David replied, a grim smile crossing his face. "A solar flare is just Tuesday for persistence." Outside, chaos erupted as modern ships began emergency shutdown procedures. Their automated systems, optimized for efficiency and speed, couldn't handle the approaching electromagnetic storm. Several vessels attempted emergency departures there, engines flaring desperately as they raced to reach minimum safe distance. The Valorian warship Talon of Supremacy started experiencing system failures before the flare even arrived. Its advanced shield generators, designed to deflect weapons fire, overloaded when trying to disperse electromagnetic radiation across too broad a spectrum. Talia's voice came through on emergency channels, ordering evacuation to the station. Click 17's elegant trading vessel went dark entirely, its crystalline power systems shattering under the strain of conflicting emergency protocols. Prefect Wome broadcast from the station's command center, his voice tight with panic. "All personnel evacuate to inner chambers. Outer hull sections cannot be guaranteed. We're experiencing primary system failures across all networks." Inside Persistence, the crew worked with practiced efficiency. These systems had been designed by people who knew that in deep space, there was no rescue coming. Everything had multiple backups, and every backup had a manual override. The solar flare hit like a hammer. Radiation slammed into the station, and every sophisticated computer system screamed in protest before shutting down to protect itself. Life support wavered, lights flickered and died. In the darkness, only one ship remained fully operational. Persistence's shields held steady, its backup systems seamlessly taking over from primary, its crew working by emergency lighting that drew power from sources independent of the main grid. Rachel stood on the bridge, watching through reinforced viewports as the galaxy's mightiest civilizations went dark around them. The ship they'd mocked was now the only vessel still breathing. Radiation levels climbed past critical thresholds while Rachel watched alien vessels die around her. The solar flare had exceeded every prediction, turning Meridian 7 into a graveyard of failed technology. Emergency lights flickered across the station's hull, and somewhere in the distance, atmosphere vented from a ruptured seal. "Engineering status report," Rachel called out, her voice cutting through the organized chaos of the bridge. David's response came immediately. "All systems nominal, primary shields at 83% capacity, backup power ready if needed. We could sit here for 3 days and not break a sweat." Through the communications array, Rachel heard Prefect Wombs increasingly desperate. "Broadcasts, any vessel with functional systems, please respond. Station life support failing in outer sections. We have wounded personnel trapped in docking bay 12. Rachel made her decision. "David, can we extend our shields to cover nearby vessels?" There was a pause, then David's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "The old girl was built for generation ship duty. She's got power to spare. Which ships do you want to save?" "All of them," Rachel said. "Start with the ones closest to us. Amy, calculate optimal shield configuration. Chris, open a channel to the station." The crew moved like parts of a well-oiled machine. Amy's fingers flew across her console, translating shield geometry into equations that would have made Earth's best physicists weep. Chris established communication through channels that the electromagnetic interference couldn't touch. "Meridian 7 Control, this is Ambassador Grant aboard Persistence. We're extending our shields to protect nearby vessels and damaged station sections. Transmit locations of personnel in danger." Womb's response came through heavy with static. "Persistence, your vessel was deemed unsafe hours ago. You cannot possibly have systems capable of—" "Prefect, people are dying," Rachel interrupted. "We can argue about safety ratings later. Sending you our shield configuration now. Coordinate evacuation to protected zones." David worked his console with hands that had been repairing this exact ship for 15 years. His father had served aboard Persistence before him, and his grandmother before that. 3 generations of the Ross family maintaining systems that dated back to Earth's first desperate push into deep space. "Extending shield radius now," David announced. "Amy, I need you to compensate for the Valorian warship's mass. Its density is throwing off my calculations." "Compensating?" Amy replied, her training taking over. "Shield bubble extending. We've got coverage on 3 civilian transports and Talon of Supremacy." Aboard the Valorian warship, Commander Talia Oren stared at her sensors in disbelief. Her vessel's power was almost completely drained, emergency batteries barely maintaining life support. Then, impossibly, her screens showed a protective field enveloping the entire ship. "Engineering report," Talia demanded. "Where is that shield coming from?" Her chief engineer's voice carried shocked confusion. "Commander, it's the human vessel. Somehow they're projecting a shield large enough to cover us along with several other ships. The power requirements should be impossible for a ship that size." Talia pulled up external cameras and saw Persistence sitting calmly in its docking bay, its hull still showing all those patches and repairs. Yet energy readings indicated it was operating as if nothing unusual was happening. The contradiction made her head hurt. On the station, Prefect Womb coordinated rescue efforts from a backup command center. Dr. Alith, the station's head scientist, worked beside him, her amphibious features tight with concentration as she analyzed data. "Prefect, you need to see this," Alith said, pulling up scan results. "The human ship's power output is consistent with vessels 10 times its size. More than that, the technology generating their shields doesn't match any known configuration in our databases." "They're using outdated systems," Womb protested, though his certainty was crumbling. "We saw the patches, the manual controls." "We saw what we expected to see," Alith interrupted. "I'm reading power signatures that suggest their reactor design predates modern fusion theory. It's impossible, but the data doesn't lie." Rachel stood at the center of Persistence's bridge, watching her crew save lives. Chris coordinated with station personnel, guiding survivors toward protected areas. Amy continuously adjusted shield parameters as the solar flare intensified. David managed power distribution with the ease of someone conducting a familiar symphony. "Ambassador," Chris called out, "we're receiving requests from 17 different vessels. They all want to know how we're maintaining shields during an electromagnetic event that's frying their systems." "Tell them the truth," Rachel replied. "Our shields were designed for long-duration exposure to cosmic radiation. Solar flares are just louder versions of what we deal with every day." Lieutenant Amy turned from her console. "Sir, I'm detecting something strange in the long-range sensors. Despite the interference, I'm picking up energy signatures from our reactor that don't match any modern classification." David glanced at Rachel, a question in his eyes. She gave a small nod. "Amy, what you're detecting is a power plant built using principles from Earth's generation ship program," David explained. "Before humanity had FTL, before we knew anyone else was out here, we built ships designed to run for centuries without resupply. Persistence's reactor could maintain full power for another 500 years without refueling." The bridge fell silent as the implications registered. "Sir," Amy said slowly, "generation ships were theoretical. Most of them were supposed to have failed or reached their destinations decades ago." "Most did," Rachel confirmed. "Persistence is one of the survivors." On the Valorian warship, Talia listened to intercepted transmissions between Persistence and the station. Generation ship program. Centuries of operation. Impossible endurance. Each word challenged everything she thought she understood about human technology. She accessed Valorian military archives, searching for any reference to human generation ships. Most files were classified above her clearance level, but fragments remained. Launch dates from over a millennium ago, vessel names, projected trajectories, and one notation that made her breath catch. "Persistence Generation Ship 07 launch date, Earth year 2157, status, unknown." Talia did the math in her head. If the launch date was accurate, the human vessel currently protecting her warship was over 1,000 years old. She'd mocked a ship that was older than the Valorian Empire's current dynasty. The solar flare reached its peak intensity, and across Meridian 7, the true extent of technological fragility became evident. Modern ships, built for speed and efficiency, couldn't handle prolonged stress. Their automated systems made them vulnerable to exactly the kind of sustained assault that deep space regularly delivered. Persistence, designed by engineers who knew their descendants would depend on these systems, weathered the storm without strain. Dr. Elith completed her analysis and transmitted the results to Prefect Wome. "I've confirmed the age of several components aboard the human vessel. Some of the hull plating contains isotope ratios that placed their manufacture over 800 years ago. The reactor shows decay signatures consistent with continuous operation for a millennium." Wome read the report 3 times. "That's impossible. No species maintains vessels for that duration. The cost alone would be irrelevant if the alternative was extinction," Elith finished. "Prefect, I believe we've fundamentally misunderstood humanity's position. They didn't arrive in an old ship because they lack better ones. They arrived in an old ship because it's proven." As the solar flare finally began to subside, damage reports flooded in. 12 vessels required major repairs. The station itself had lost 30% of its primary systems, casualties numbered in the dozens. Yet the human ship that everyone had mocked stood ready, its shields still strong, its crew still working to save lives. Rachel received a direct communication request from Commander Talia. She accepted, and the Valorian's face appeared on screen, her expression unreadable. "Ambassador Grant, my sensors indicate your vessel is over 1,000 years old. My first instinct is to call this a malfunction. My training tells me such a thing is impossible." Talia paused. "But my eyes tell me your impossible ship just saved my entire crew." I owe you an apology, and more importantly, I owe you an explanation of what happened to my arrogance." "Your apology is accepted, Commander," Rachel replied. "As for explanations, perhaps we should wait until the crisis has fully passed." Talia's expression shifted to something like respect. "Your ship withstood forces that destroyed our best technology. I formally request technical specifications for your shield systems and power generation. The Valorian fleet needs to understand how you accomplished this." "We'll arrange a meeting," Rachel agreed. "But Commander, our technology isn't advanced, it's just designed to last." As Persistence maintained its protective shield over damaged vessels and station sections, word spread through the galactic community. The primitive human ship, the vessel they'd mocked and dismissed, had become the only reliable system in a catastrophic emergency. Engineers across species began asking the same question. What else had they gotten wrong about humanity? 72 hours after the solar flare, Meridian 7's council chamber filled with representatives from 20 different species. Rachel Grant stood at the center podium, surrounded by beings who had spent days reconsidering everything they thought they knew about humanity. The mockery had transformed into intense curiosity, and in some cases, something approaching fear. Prefect Wome called the emergency session to order. "Ambassador Grant has agreed to answer questions regarding the human vessel Persistence. I remind all delegates that this ship saved countless lives during the recent crisis. Whatever judgments we made previously should be reconsidered in that light." Commander Talia Oren stood, her military bearing somehow more respectful than before. "Ambassador, my intelligence officers have confirmed that Persistence was launched from Earth over 1,000 years ago. This contradicts our understanding of human technological development. How is this possible?" Rachel had prepared for this moment. The truth was going to reshape humanity's relationship with the galaxy, and there was no point in hiding it anymore. "Commander, you're correct. Persistence left Earth in the year 2157, carrying 15,000 colonists on a journey that was supposed to take 400 years. We never reached our destination." Rachel paused, letting that sink in. "Instead, we traveled for nearly 1,000 years, adapting, surviving, and eventually finding you." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Dr. Alith's amphibious face showed pure fascination. "Ambassador, generation ship theory suggests such vessels would fail within centuries. How did you maintain functionality?" David Ross, who had accompanied Rachel to the council, stepped forward. "We maintained functionality because failure meant death. Every system on Persistence has been repaired hundreds of times. Every component has backups, and those backups have backups. Generations of engineers learned to maintain these systems with whatever resources we could manufacture aboard ship." "But the technological sophistication," Click 17 interjected, compound eyes reflecting confusion. "Your systems appear primitive, yet they outperformed our most advanced designs during the flare." "That's because you're measuring the wrong thing," David replied. "You measure advancement by complexity. We measure it by reliability. A simple system that works is infinitely more advanced than a complex system that fails." Rachel continued the explanation. "During our journey, Persistence encountered phenomena that your species documented millennia ago. Cosmic radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, dark matter density fluctuations. We couldn't predict when we'd face these challenges, so we built everything to withstand the worst possible conditions continuously." A delegate from the silicon-based crystalline collective spoke up. "This explains the durability, but not the age. How did your crew survive a 1,000-year journey?" "Generations," Rachel said. "Simply, my great-great-great-grandmother was born aboard this ship. Her grandmother before her lived her entire life between these walls. The original colonists who left Earth are 8 generations behind me. We are the children of travelers who never stopped traveling." The weight of that revelation settled over the chamber. These weren't newcomers to space. They were species-deep veterans of the void. Talia accessed her datapad. "Our military archives contain fragments about Earth's generation ship program, 12 vessels launched during your planet's environmental crisis. What happened to the others? Rachel's expression grew somber. We don't know. Persistence lost contact with our sister ships within the first century. Space is vast, and our communication systems had limited range. For all we know, we're the last ones still traveling. But you encountered galactic civilization 300 years ago, Dr. Elith noted, checking her records. Why wait until now to make formal contact? David answered this one. Would you trust a species that appeared primitive and desperate? We spent 3 centuries observing your civilizations, learning your languages, understanding your politics. We upgraded what we could while maintaining the core systems that kept us alive. When we finally decided to make contact, we chose Persistence specifically as our ambassador. Why? Wom asked. Surely you could have built a modern vessel with the knowledge you gained. We could have, Rachel agreed. But Persistence represents something no modern ship can claim, proof of human endurance. This ship is our history, our culture, and our capability all in one. Every patch on its hull tells a story of survival. Every backup system represents a problem solved by people who refuse to quit. A young Valorian officer named Kryn stood hesitantly. Ambassador, I studied the shield configuration you used during the crisis. The mathematics shouldn't work according to modern field theory. How did your engineers develop such techniques? Trial and error over centuries, David replied. My ancestors didn't have the luxury of simulations or theoretical models. They had real problems that needed real solutions. When cosmic radiation threatened to kill everyone aboard, they didn't write papers about it. They built shields that worked, then taught their children to maintain them. Rachel pulled up a holographic display showing Persistence's internal layout. Every corridor you see has been rebuilt at least once. The original superstructure remains, but everything else has been replaced, repaired, or redesigned. We have sections built using techniques from 6 different technological eras. She highlighted specific areas. This is the original reactor chamber, still using fusion principles developed on Earth. This section was rebuilt 200 years into our journey using materials we manufactured from harvested asteroids. This wing was constructed 300 years ago when we first encountered your civilizations and adapted some of your innovations. A ship of layers, Elith murmured, each generation building upon the last, never abandoning what worked. Exactly, Rachel confirmed. And through it all, we maintained obsessive redundancy. Our life support has 7 independent backup systems. Our reactor can be manually operated if every computer aboard fails. We have food production capabilities that could sustain us for another 1,000 years if necessary. Click 17's business instincts activated. The economic implications are staggering. If your maintenance techniques could be applied to our vessels, the cost savings would revolutionize galactic commerce. It's not just about maintenance, David corrected. It's about philosophy. You build ships to be replaced. We built a ship to be eternal. Those are fundamentally different approaches. Talia stood again. Ambassador, I must be direct. The Valorian Empire has been building warships for 12 millennia. We pride ourselves on military superiority. Yet your 1,000-year-old civilian vessel outperformed our newest designs. This is both humbling and troubling. Commander, your warships are magnificent for their purpose, Rachel said diplomatically. But they're built for battles that last hours or days. Persistence was built for a battle that lasted centuries, different purposes, different designs. Yet when crisis came, your design proved superior, Talia pressed. Superior for surviving catastrophic system failures, Rachel acknowledged. But could Persistence outrun a Valorian interceptor? No. Could it outgun a battle cruiser? Absolutely not. Every design makes trade-offs. Ours traded speed and power for endurance. Wom brought up the central question everyone was thinking. Ambassador Grant, humanity presented itself as a young species seeking trade agreements. Instead, we discover your ancient voyagers with technologies we don't fully understand. This changes the nature of our negotiations significantly. Rachel met his gaze. Prefect, We are exactly who we said we are. Earth is new to galactic politics. We have much to learn from established civilizations, but we also have experience that no species confined to local space can claim. We've lived in the void for 1,000 years. We understand things about deep space that you've forgotten or never needed to know. Such as, Wom challenged. Such as the fact that complexity fails, David interjected. Such as knowing that the most advanced solution is the one that still works when everything else has broken. Such as understanding that survival isn't about having the best technology. It's about having technology that refuses to quit. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. Humanity wasn't primitive. They were refined through trials most species only encountered in theory. Dr. Alith spoke quietly. You've fundamentally altered our understanding of technological progress. We assumed advancement meant complexity. You've demonstrated that true advancement might mean sustainable simplicity. We don't claim to have all the answers, Rachel said, but we offer our experience freely. Persistence has been our teacher for 1,000 years. Perhaps it can teach others as well. Commander Talia made a decision. Ambassador, I formally request permission for Valorian engineers to study aboard Persistence. We need to understand your redundancy principles. Our losses during the solar flare were unacceptable. Permission granted, Rachel replied. We welcome any species willing to learn. Within hours, the story spread across the galaxy. The fragile human ship was actually an ancient Voyager. The patches were badges of honor. The primitive systems were refined through necessity into something modern civilization had forgotten how to build. Technology that endured. Kryn stood in Persistence's engineering bay, her scaled hands hovering uncertainly over a control panel that looked like it had been assembled from 3 different technological eras. Around her, a dozen other alien engineers from various species observed as David Ross demonstrated a repair technique that violated every modern principle they'd been taught. The key is understanding that elegant solutions are fragile, David explained, manually calibrating a power coupling that most species would have replaced entirely. This coupling has failed and been repaired 47 times. Each repair taught us something new about stress tolerances and material fatigue. A crystalline engineer named Harmonix clicked skeptically. But replacement would restore factory specifications. Repair introduces variables and potential weaknesses. Replacement requires having the part in stock, David countered. When you're 8 light-years from the nearest supply station and traveling at sublight speeds, replacement isn't an option. You learn to make what you have continue working or everyone dies. Kryn ran her scanner over the coupling. The molecular structure shows evidence of 17 different bonding techniques. Some of these compounds shouldn't be compatible. They weren't initially, David agreed. My great-uncle figured out how to make them work together after the original coupling failed during a radiation storm. He had 6 hours to find a solution before the reactor overloaded. Desperation makes excellent teachers. Lieutenant Amy Foster entered the bay carrying a tray of tools that looked ancient. David, maintenance crew is ready to demonstrate the backup life support activation. Excellent timing, David said. Everyone, follow me. You're about to see something that'll make your automated systems look like children's toys. They proceeded to a chamber 3 decks down. The walls showed clear evidence of centuries of use. Patches overlaying patches, reinforcement struts added in 4 distinct architectural styles. At the chamber's center sat a massive manual wheel connected to a series of mechanical linkages. This, David announced with evident pride, is our manual life support override. If every computer aboard Persistence failed simultaneously, a crew member could use this wheel to manually control air circulation, temperature, and pressure throughout the entire ship. Harmonix's translator rendered their disbelief clearly. Manual control of life support for a vessel this size would require impossible precision. The calculations alone are all mechanical, Amy interrupted, pointing to a series of brass gauges and pressure indicators. The system was designed by the original colonists who understood that electronic systems fail. These mechanical indicators measure actual physical conditions, not sensor interpretations. David grabbed the wheel and turned it. Throughout the ship, ventilation systems responded, air pressure shifting in carefully calibrated patterns. Every crew member trains on this system. We could operate Persistence entirely without computers if we had to. Kryn watched the mechanical linkages operate. The engineering tolerances must be extraordinary to maintain accuracy over such duration. They are, David confirmed. We machine parts to specifications that modern facilities would consider wasteful. But when you know these parts need to last centuries, the extra precision becomes essential. A soft-bodied delegate from the Aqueous Collective raised a tentacle. This philosophy extends beyond mechanical systems. Everything, Rachel Grant said, entering the chamber. Our food production doesn't rely on automated hydroponics. We have actual soil, brought from Earth and maintained through centuries. Our water recycling uses both modern filtration and ancient distillation. Our medical bay contains surgical tools that could be used without electricity if necessary. Over the next week, Persistence became an informal academy. Species that had mocked the ship now sent their brightest engineers to study aboard. David organized workshops on redundancy theory. Amy taught navigation techniques that didn't require computers. The ship's doctor, Helen Park, demonstrated medical procedures using equipment that could be sterilized and reused indefinitely. Commander Talia attended every session, taking meticulous notes. Her flagship, Talon of Supremacy, still sat in dock receiving repairs. The solar flare had revealed catastrophic design flaws in Valorian military technology, and her superiors demanded solutions. David, Talia approached him after a demonstration on power distribution. I need to understand something. Valorian ships carry enough spare parts to rebuild half the vessel, yet we still suffered complete system failure. How did Persistence survive with what appears to be minimal spare inventory? David led her to a storage bay. We don't carry spare parts, we carry spare capabilities. He opened a container filled with raw metal stock, basic chemical compounds, and simple tools. With these materials and our machine shop, we can fabricate replacement parts for nearly every system aboard. A machine shop, Talia repeated. You manufacture components. Aboard ship. Have been for 900 years, David confirmed. The original spare parts ran out 3 generations into our journey. We either learned to make new ones or died. Turns out, learning was more effective. He walked her through the fabrication facility. Unlike modern rapid manufacturing systems, Persistence's shop relied on fundamental techniques: metal cutting, welding, chemical synthesis, precision machining. Every process could be performed manually if power failed. This is how we maintain systems indefinitely, David explained. We don't need the exact original part. We need the capability to create functional equivalents, those mechanical coupling you saw earlier. The current version was manufactured aboard ship 40 years ago using techniques my grandmother taught me. Talia's military mind recognized the strategic implications. A vessel that can manufacture its own parts is effectively unsinkable. Battle damage becomes temporary inconvenience rather than mission-ending crisis. Now you're thinking like a generation ship engineer, David smiled. Meanwhile, Dr. Elith worked with Rachel in Persistence's archive section. Centuries of logs, recordings, and technical documentation filled crystal storage that predated modern data systems. Your record-keeping is extraordinary, Elith observed. Most species digitize and compress historical data. You've maintained original formats across multiple media types. Because digital storage degrades and formats become obsolete, Rachel explained. We have records on Earth original magnetic tape, optical crystals from 3 different eras, and yes, even some actual paper documents sealed in protective environments. Redundancy in storage, just like everything else. Elith accessed a log from 400 years prior. This describes an encounter with a spatial anomaly that our scientists theorized about but never confirmed. Your ancestors documented everything. They knew their experiences might be valuable someday, Rachel said. Every crisis, every solution, every failure was recorded so future generations could learn. We're not just carrying old technology, we're carrying 900 years of hard-won knowledge. The implications rippled through the galactic academic community. Human records filled gaps in theoretical physics. Their experiences with long-duration space travel provided data impossible to obtain through simulation. Their survival techniques challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. Harmonizer Click 17, initially dismissive of human commerce potential, now pursued Rachel with trade proposals. Ambassador, the Crystalline Consortium wishes to purchase licenses for your redundancy engineering principles. We calculate potential profit increases of 40% across our merchant fleet. We're not selling licenses, Rachel replied firmly. We're offering knowledge freely. Any species willing to learn can send engineers to study with us. You're refusing profit? Click 17's translator conveyed genuine confusion. We're building relationships, Rachel corrected. Humanity spent 1,000 years alone in the void. Now that we've found galactic civilization, we'd rather have allies than customers. This philosophy baffled species accustomed to transactional relationships. Yet it also appealed to younger generations who saw wisdom in human approaches. Kryn became David's unofficial apprentice, absorbing maintenance philosophy that her Valorian military academy had never taught. My instructors emphasized speed of repair, Kryn explained during a maintenance session. Replace damaged components quickly and return to battle, but that assumes readily available supplies and support infrastructure. Which is fine until you're cut off from resupply, David noted. Then speed becomes irrelevant, capability becomes everything. Can you make it work with what you have? That's the question that matters in real crisis. As word spread, more species requested access to Persistence's knowledge. The ship that had been mocked became a pilgrimage site. Engineers treated visiting its corridors like sacred duty. They studied the patches, examined the redundant systems, and marveled at technology that refused to die. Prefect Wome pulled Rachel aside during a diplomatic reception. Ambassador, I must confess something. When Persistence first docked, I filed reports recommending humanity be denied full trade status. I believed your species too primitive to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. And now, Rachel asked. Now I believe galactic civilization has much to learn from humanity, Wome admitted. We've become dependent on complexity, vulnerable to exactly the failures your ship weathered without concern. You've exposed weaknesses we didn't know we had. Rachel considered her response carefully. Prefect, we're not superior, we're specialized. We survived because we had no choice. You built magnificent civilizations because you had options. Neither approach is wrong, they're simply different. Perhaps, Wome conceded, but when crisis comes, your differences become advantages. That's worth acknowledging. Late in the station's night cycle, David found Rachel on Persistence's observation deck. Through the viewport, stars gleamed against infinite darkness, the same stars their ancestors had watched for centuries. They're already designing new ships based on our principles, David said. The Valorians are adding manual backup systems. The consortium is developing modular manufacturing facilities for their merchant vessels. We've changed how they think about engineering. Good, Rachel replied. Humanity's been learning from the galaxy for 300 years. It's time the galaxy learned from us. Below them, in the docking bay, Persistence sat among vessels that now regarded it with respect. The patches visible on its hull were no longer marks of shame, but evidence of endurance. The ancient ship had taught the galaxy a fundamental truth. Survival outlasts sophistication. 6 weeks after the solar flare, Rachel stood on Persistence's bridge watching long-range sensors with growing excitement. The signature was unmistakable. broadcasting on frequencies only one other ship in the galaxy would use. Another human generation ship was approaching Meridian 7. "Identification confirmed," Lieutenant Chris Ward announced. "It's Endurance, launched from Earth in the same wave as Persistence. Last known position was 300 light-years away, heading toward the galactic rim." David rushed to the bridge, his face showing emotions Rachel rarely saw. "Endurance. My grandmother told stories about her. She was supposed to be the toughest ship in the program, designed for extreme environment survival." The communications array crackled to life. "Persistence, this is Captain Robert Hayes of Generation Ship Endurance. We detected your broadcasts 3 months ago and adjusted course to rendezvous. Permission to dock." Rachel's voice caught in her throat. "Permission enthusiastically granted, Captain Hayes. Welcome home." Within hours, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. 2 ancient human vessels, both over 1,000 years old, docking side by side. Endurance was larger than Persistence, its hull showing even more extensive repair work. Entire sections clearly rebuilt using materials harvested from asteroids and planetary rings. Captain Hayes emerged from his airlock, a man in his 50s with the same weathered competence that marked all generation ship crews. Rachel met him in the docking tube, and for a moment, they simply stared at each other, representatives of bloodlines that had traveled separate paths through the void. "We thought we were the last," Rachel said finally. "So did we," Hayes replied. "Endurance lost contact with the other ship 700 years ago. We've been alone since then, just us and the stars." The crews mingled in Persistence's common area, sharing stories that paralleled each other in surprising ways. Endurance had faced different challenges, developed alternative solutions, but maintained the same core philosophy: build to last, maintain obsessively, never stop adapting. Hayes explained their journey. "We got caught in a gravitational anomaly 60 years into the voyage. It threw us off course by 80 light-years. By the time we recovered, we'd lost contact with everyone. We kept going because stopping wasn't an option." "How did you survive 800 years without resupply?" David asked, his engineer's mind cataloging possibilities. "We became miners," Hayes's chief engineer, Patricia Lane, answered. "Endurance was designed with extensive mineral processing capabilities. Whenever we encountered asteroids, we'd harvest materials and manufacture what we needed. Our ship is 60% original components and 40% materials we refined ourselves." Kryn, who had remained aboard Persistence to continue her studies, listened with fascination. 2 human ships, both ancient, both functional. This is statistically impossible. "Unless the design philosophy ensures survival," Rachel corrected. "Both ships were built by people who knew their descendants needed them to work forever. Impossible becomes standard when extinction is the alternative." The galactic response to Endurance's arrival was immediate. If one ancient human ship was remarkable, 2 suggested something more significant. Species began searching their own records for mentions of Earth's generation ship program. What they found shocked them. Dr. Elith presented her findings to the Meridian 7 Council. According to recovered databases, Earth launched 12 generation ships between 2157 and 2163. Persistence and Endurance account for 2. Historical records suggest at least 3 others reached their destinations centuries ago and established colonies. That leaves 7 ships unaccounted for. Commander Talia stood. "You're saying there could be more ancient human vessels traveling the galaxy?" "It's probable," Elith confirmed. "These ships were designed for 400-year journeys, but we now know they can function indefinitely. Some may still be traveling. Others may have settled in regions we haven't surveyed. Humanity's diaspora could be far larger than we realized." The implications transformed humanity's galactic position overnight. They weren't newcomers seeking acceptance. They were an ancient species that had been quietly surviving in deep space while galactic civilizations rose and fell. Prefect Wome convened an emergency council session. We must reconsider humanity's status in galactic society. They possess knowledge and experience that predates some of our current civilizations. Their engineering philosophy has already influenced design across multiple species. Harmonizer Click 17 agreed. The Crystalline Consortium moves to grant humanity full membership status with senior advisory privileges. Their contributions to survival engineering alone justify this recognition. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would join galactic civilization not as junior partners, but as respected equals. Rachel and Captain Hayes stood together in the council chamber as Prefect Wome made the announcement. It is the decision of this council that humanity, represented by Generation Ship's persistence and endurance, be granted full membership in the Galactic Cooperative. Furthermore, we request that human engineering teams be integrated into our infrastructure development programs. We accept, Rachel said formally, and we offer our knowledge freely to any species willing to learn. Hayes added, endurance carries different specializations than persistence. Our experience with extreme environment survival could benefit expansion into hostile regions. Together, our ships represent two branches of human adaptive capability. Over the following months, the transformation accelerated. Valorian military academies added courses on redundancy engineering. Crystalline merchant vessels incorporated manual backup systems. Species across the galaxy began rethinking their relationship with technology. Kryn graduated from her apprenticeship with David and returned to the Valorian fleet. She immediately began redesigning their damage control procedures. We've been trained to replace, she told her commanders. Humans taught me to repair. The difference could save thousands of lives. Young engineers from dozens of species studied aboard persistence and endurance. The ancient ships became universities, their corridors classrooms, their repair logs textbooks. The knowledge accumulated over centuries of desperate survival flowed into galactic civilization. Dr. Alith published comprehensive studies on human sustainability engineering. Her work became required reading for anyone designing long-duration systems. The academic community recognized that humanity's forced isolation had refined techniques others had abandoned or never developed. Rachel and Hayes worked together to establish the Human Integration Bureau. We'll coordinate with Earth's government, Rachel explained. But the Generation ships represent our own distinct culture. We've been out here too long to simply fold back into Earth's authority. Agreed, Hayes said. We're the deep space branch of humanity. We understand the void in ways planet dwellers never will. Our role should reflect that experience. The Bureau's first initiative was cataloging all known information about the other Generation ships. Fragments of data scattered across galactic archives slowly assembled into a larger picture. Horizon had reached its destination 400 years ago. Voyager's destiny established a colony in the Beta Quadrant. New Dawn was rumored to have continued traveling even after finding a suitable world. But 7 ships remained unaccounted for. Somewhere in the galaxy, more ancient human vessels might be traveling, maintaining, surviving. Months became years. Persistence and endurance remained at Meridian 7, serving as both diplomatic vessels and living museums. Their crews rotated, some settling on offered worlds, others choosing to continue the tradition of spacefaring life. David Ross stood in Persistence's engine room for what might be his last time. He'd accepted a position teaching redundancy engineering at the Galactic Technical Institute. His replacement, a young woman named Sophie Chen, whose great-grandmother had served under his grandfather, already knew the systems. Intimately, "She's all yours," David said, running his hand along a control panel his family had maintained for 3 generations. "Keep her running." "Always," Sophie promised. "That's what we do." Rachel remained as Persistence's commanding officer, but she now also served on the Galactic Council's Infrastructure Committee. Her insights into long-duration system design influenced projects across civilized space. The ambassador who had arrived in a mocked ship now shaped policy for billions. One evening, working late in her quarters, Rachel received a priority transmission. Captain Hayes appeared on screen, his expression unreadable. "Robert," Rachel asked, "what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Hayes replied. "Everything's right. Endurance just detected a signal, old Earth frequencies, generation ship protocols." He paused. "Rachel, we've found another one." Through the viewport, stars gleamed with new possibility. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, another ancient ship traveled. Another human crew maintained systems their ancestors had built. Another branch of humanity endured. Rachel smiled. "Transmit coordinates to persistence. We'll go together." Hayes nodded. Just like the old days, two generation ships heading into the unknown. "Not unknown," Rachel corrected. "We're going to bring family home." Persistence's engines hummed to life, the same engines that had carried generations of humans through the void. Beside it, Endurance prepared for departure. Two ancient vessels, scarred by centuries, maintained by dedication, proven by survival. The galaxy watched them go, these ships that had taught civilizations the value of endurance. They'd arrived mocked and dismissed. They left respected and revered. In the end, the lesson was simple. The newest isn't always the best. The most advanced isn't always the most capable. Sometimes what endures is what matters. And humanity, through ships that refused to quit, had proven they endured. Lieutenant Amy Foster, now Persistence's executive officer, completed the pre-flight checklist. "All systems green, Captain, ready to depart on your command." Rachel looked around the bridge, seeing the patches on the walls, the manual controls beside automated systems, the generations of human ingenuity made manifest in metal and determination. "Take us out, Amy," Rachel ordered. "Another ship is waiting. Let's show them they're not alone." Persistence pulled away from Meridian 7, its ancient hull moving with the same reliability it had shown for a millennium. Behind it, species watched and learned. Ahead of it, the void held no fear. The ship that was supposed to be fragile had proven unbreakable. The technology that was supposed to be obsolete had become timeless. The crew that was supposed to be primitive had taught the galaxy wisdom. And somewhere in the darkness, another ancient vessel traveled, maintained by human hands, powered by human determination, proof that what is built to last will last. The stars beckoned, Persistence answered. The journey, as always, continued.